Shelby, very excited to welcome you to Unscripted and to the GGV Capital family. Lucky to be here with my friend and colleague, Chelcie, and thrilled to be a new investor in your company, Arteria AI. So love to just have you do a quick intro of yourself, and then Chelcie and I have lots of amazing questions, but couldn't be more excited to be partnering with you. And obviously that's part of why we're doing this, and we'll do many more. But celebrating the occasion and the announcement of your new round of funding.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Yeah, by way of background, I initially started off as a lawyer. I started my career off, I was a partner in a law firm. It was the thing that was most important to me in the world. It was just ensuring that I lived that dream. And when I made it, I realized that I guess the prize for the pie eating contest was more pie, and that it wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. So I looked around and saw that there were problems with documents everywhere within law, all over, in particular in public M&A, the due diligence practices. We were printing out tens of thousands of binders at this point, and it was of documents rather than binders, but still a large number, and nothing was being organized. There were no databases at this stage. There was no real technology being applied to any of that. And so I decided to start my first company working in the documentation space, and built that up really, really quickly. And within 4 years had sort of grown that to, around 450 or 500 folks, and sold that to Deloitte. And then since that time have spent, thought I'd spend maybe 12 months there, spent about 8 years, ran a whole bunch of different things for them, innovation, data and analytics, AI for them, started their AI practice, Omnia AI, which was great. And then was so captivated still by this idea of documentation, but this time more specifically within large scale enterprise and less focused on legal alone, and just really continued to be captivated by what was happening in technology and AI, and where natural language and sort of new multimodal models were starting to take us in that space. And so decided to incubate the Arteria IP within Deloitte, and then spun it out just about 3 years ago into Arteria, and here we are today.
Amazing. As Jeff mentioned, we're very excited to be partnering with you, Shelby, as well as the broader Arteria team. But something that really struck us about your background, which you alluded to earlier, is that you worked at Deloitte, and in particular, you really advised some of the largest enterprises in the world through kind of their digital journey. How do you feel that kind of your direct experience working within enterprises at Deloitte has really oriented you to kind of succeed today, or take Arteria where it is today, since you are working with some very large financial services companies?
Yeah, I think where it was so helpful was I not only had responsibilities for helping clients, so that would be across every sector and obviously tilted toward large scale enterprise, but I also was responsible for helping us innovate as an organization, helped with the strategy and innovation for a $46 billion organization. Now I think it's even bigger. And so having that dual understanding of really both trying to innovate a large scale organization and having, a material role in that, but also then being able to pattern match that across large scale enterprises and really seeing inside and learning, across different problem sets, different stakeholders. I think that duality was really helpful in sort of rounding out our perspective in terms of being able to set the context for our clients before we even go in there. I think a lot of people kind of come and say, listen, we have this thing that will do a lot of good for you. I think we're able to instead say, there are well-recognized problems that we deeply understand within your organization that our software can be applied to help with. And while the problem set that we're captivated by is the sort of big vision problem of what to do with unstructured data and decision-making in organizations, in practice, what we do is we turn documents into data, and we enable core banking processes like trading, lending, et cetera. So just like really a deep contextual understanding combined with, of course, having leading software.
And Shelby, can you talk a little bit about, so you sell your company to Deloitte, you have this amazing run at Deloitte, and you easily could have probably stayed there for another, 10, 15 years, retired, gone off into the sunset. What prompted you to want to, in every founder's life, and you'd obviously started a company previously, and for me, I started a couple companies, so I know that feeling. But like, what was the moment where you were like, I have to go do this? What really prompted you to want to spin out the technology for Arteria and go build what you've built today?
Yeah, listen, Deloitte was an amazing place to work. I had an amazing run there, and they were so good to me that they kept giving me meatier problems that I really wanted to think about and work on. And I'm very, mission driven. And so if you give me a great problem and I'm hyper engaged on it, I'm just going to keep going. But once we had sort of finished the fundamental first leg on the AI build, which was again, like, this was, gosh, 5-6 years ago. It was really on the early curve of where organizations were even thinking about building out practices like that. So once we had done sort of the first 100 million of revenue, it really seemed like I was going to build again. And if there was ever going to be a time where I was going to take my big swing, and these things are always kind of embarrassing to think about and say, but like, it was time. It was gonna, I had now been a founder before, been, both an innovation and P&L leader within a large scale business, done a number of M&A deals. And, the combination of those tools in my toolbox, it felt like now is the right time to really say, okay, we're ready. We feel strong. Let's go and attack a problem space that we have been working in, by the way, for like 20 years at this point. Let's go and kill it and be absolute world leaders and take a ginormous swing and go change the world, which sounds a little extreme, but a lot of founders.
That's what you're doing. Chelcie, do you want to fire away with another question?
Sure. No, absolutely. I think something you mentioned, Shelby, about kind of you have been playing in kind of the AI, ML, NLP space for several years. But as we all know, the sector is getting increasingly more popular and getting more interest as of the last couple of years, particularly because of kind of recent innovations in NLP. But I'd love to hear kind of, since Arteria and yourself have been experts in the space for a while, how have you thought about kind of building Arteria with the new technical innovations that are coming out kind of in the AI ecosystem? What are potentially even kind of how you thought about data science at the core of the business, as well as how you think about kind of the vertical application of AI? Because I think a lot of times people think about kind of the foundation layer, because those are kind of popular companies today, but we'd love to think about how you've thought about kind of using AI in a very vertical way.
Yeah. So first of all, I think that we never expected that the entire world would come to our doorstep and find unstructured data as cool as it is. So like, we love this moment in time where the entire world is captivated by concepts that have been, batted around here for a long period of time. We never expected that the documentation guys would become so cool. And so we're really thrilled by that. But in terms of AI, first of all, AI is a tool with which we can apply to problems that have been age-old problems. How do we get more money? How do we save cost? How do we minimize risk? Like, these are age-old problems in any business, and AI is a technique to solve them. And so because we always think about it problem first, how do we solve actual money-driven problems for customers, and then think about how technology can assist there. For us, the natural evolution of the technology from, earlier, like the earliest, like LSI, like the earliest kind of techniques that we would have used, to now using large language models or using, anything in between. We've always been of the view that we will apply the best technology to any problem. Now, what that means is it doesn't mean that big data is getting bigger and bigger and here to stay. In fact, we would suggest that 2023 is the era of small data, and that you want things to be purpose-driven, and you want them to be cheaper, faster, better, and very purpose specific. And so really understanding that you're going to use, for example, a massive model where there's low data, and you're going to use a very, very small purpose specific model where you can just train it and then distill it down to running really cheaply. And so understanding the whole breadth of what's out there, I think, is one of our core strengths, and really understanding how to apply, the right hammer to the nail, I think is a key strength. Part of that, as you say, Chelcie, is like, our models are, yes, you can access a number of great open source models on the internet, but our research and our models have really been built along verticalizing our tech stack and really ensuring that we have IP that's totally differentiated from what's out there, and that we're going to be able to attack very specific financial services problems in a very particular way, and ensure that we, as a result, get the best results out of this research. So we don't shy away from doing primary research. We just want to make sure that if everyone is focused on solving a really general problem, we're really focused on two things. Number one, solving a very specific problem the best. And then number two, ensuring that that specific problem is tied to a KPI for a customer. So it's not just science for science sake. It's really science for money's sake, I guess, or for problem solving sake.
I love that. Shelby, obviously you're going after very large customers. Not easy to do. Chelcie and I and our firm, we work with lots of founders in the software universe, and going after the Fortune 100, or in your case, even some of the Fortune 10, it's hard. And I would just love any anecdotes or thoughts that you could share on that experience. I mean, in your time at Deloitte, you partner with executives, you partner with CEOs and CFOs and COOs, CTOs. So it's probably a natural thing for you. But for most early stage technology companies, breaking through and landing those first few major customers and supporting them and collaborating with them, it's hard. It's really hard. And so could you just share some of the things that you guys, A, have learned along the way, and B, some of the things that you've really put into practice inside of your company that have made you so successful with these really large institutions and really large customers?
Well, I would say to start with, we in our sales motion, we try and sort of go after two paths at once. We're always very clear, as we've talked about a number of times already, about the ROI and the value we're going to drive. So that's critically important. You really can't go to an organization and say, I have a tool, how does it apply to you? You really have to understand.
Which is a lot of what's happening in the market today, to be honest, with AI. Yeah,
I think so, for sure. And so I really think that clear path of like, you're going to see X, Y, Z, or, et cetera, within a particular use case is exceedingly important. I think what we've also done a really great job of is layering on top of that a very clear vision. And so rather than just saying we're only applicable to these 4 high ROI use cases, or 10 ROI or 100, whatever it is, we're also saying, but for the things we don't know, these are the examples that prove the rule. Let's also talk about the rule at the same time. And let's talk about, at a high vision level, how your executives are thinking about data and decision-making within the organization, and starting to talk about bigger concepts around, their AI strategy, the culture around AI, what it means for the future, where it will change the future of work. I mean, to some extent, when you approach a large organization, you need to have your aperture open enough that you're not thinking about what you sell. You're really thinking about where they need to be as an organization. So when we go in, we're always very keenly aware that we understand their purpose, their agenda, that we've read and really have materially engaged with their annuals and their financial reports, et cetera, so that we're very, very clear on saying, listen, we're here to help you along your journey. Arteria can be the foundation of a very large scale transformation, as you know, at many of these organizations. As a result, we're not here for 5 minutes. The software will hopefully carry you through on a very broad journey across the organization. And as a result, it's up to us and our sort of strategy team to work with these customers and really help them understand how this transformation can be a part of their growth journey or their productivity journey, and really trying to put it back and make it about the customer rather than necessarily making it about us. And so I would say there's no real magic to that. I think in our first conversation, you asked me, what was the worst client-customer conversation I'd had or whatever. And I sort of embarrassingly said that I'd had a conversation that day where we had sort of unsold something to a customer. And I just think it's so important that we're really putting their interests before our own agenda for the quarter or for the year. And I think that having that long-term view and really being customer first, or what we call trying to turn customers into raving fans, the Ken Blanchard book, is critical to who we are.
And I know Chelcie has some more questions, but one thing I just want to double click on is, how do you scale that knowledge and understanding of the customer? So you really understand these customers, you understand their operation, you understand their processes, you understand their goals, their KPIs, you understand the financial metrics they're trying to scale and think about in a way that their C-level execs understand, and you're helping them drive that down, I would assume, at some level. But how do you scale that? How do you teach other people inside of Arteria to learn that or develop that skill set or that knowledge base? Because that's one thing we see with organizations that are trying to sell to large enterprise customers, is beyond the CEO, maybe a couple of execs, it's hard to scale that. How have you guys scaled that?
Well, I think proof positive right now is that we've been able to attract the right talent because of the ethos of what we're trying to drive and because of the vision of what we're going to drive. And so we'll really go the extra long way, if you've ever talked to anyone on our team that I've recruited, to really get the right people around us. We cannot go where we want to go as 2 or 3 people on our sales force. We just won't get there. As a result, I mean, if you even look in the past week, we've announced 3 new senior level MD hires in New York. These are senior MDs within large scale banking organizations who also worked in some sort of technology capacity as part of their role, but their role was primarily focused on the business. And you'll see that we really try and make sure that we're peering off our customers with people who really understand what they're going through, but have significant experience in where they need to go as well. And so we're just always ensuring that we're really attracting the right talent for the growth that we want to see.
Great. And I think on that point, actually, something that we have consistently heard from customers, as well as getting to know the Arteria team, is really the strong culture and ethos of excellence. Can you talk to us a little bit of kind of like how you've built that culture and how that is kind of going to take the company towards its next phases?
Yeah, I think everyone has their own secret sauce. And I mean, hopefully our secret sauce is, context plus AI, as we've discussed, but really our actual secret sauce is in this culture. We have 4 main cultural principles that we called out on day 1, and we've refined them since then. But fundamentally, this was a day 1 item, which is unusual for a company, unless you've built a bunch of companies and divisions before, in which case you know how critical it is. We believe in big vision because we don't want to do kind of incremental things. We believe in friendliness. You'll see that we're a really smiley bunch, but also because you need to have a laugh when you're learning. We believe in speed, which requires decentralized autonomous decision-making. And then finally, we believe in one mission and really ensuring that everyone works together in this hyper-collaborative manner. But you'll see the kind of people that do well at Arteria, and I'm not one of them, but we have a number of ultra marathoners. We have a number of athletes. We have, it really tends to attract people who love a high performance culture. And so for some reason, it works for us. We work very intensely because we feel that the world needs structured data to make great decisions about their business in terms of core financial services processes. And so we really believe in this mission, and people get on board with that. And then if you love our cultural principles, you're going to be a great fit because it's going to feel very natural to you. We have a guy who came out of 20 years at a bank and came into Arteria, and I think felt like he found his home here. I think because a lot of us have come out of large organizations, there's quite a bit of still structure and respect for career journeys and paths and growth, and really just trying to think like we're already, a huge company, even though, of course, we're on that journey, knowing that we want to be here for a long time. We want to #GoLong, Jeff. And so we just want to make sure that we're always building with an idea that we want to get the best talent we can. We want to make sure that we're not being penny wise and pound foolish. We want to make sure that we're really creating grown up systems and processes for people to feel that they can have a full career. And whether or not they choose to stay with us for the long term, we want to make sure that we fulfill our promises around learning, development, et cetera, while they're here, to make sure that that we're really a world leading kind of talent destination.
Shelby, you also have built a company that I would argue is kind of purpose built for this post 2021 era of technology. We went through this phase in 20 and 21 where companies were raising tons of money. They were burning tons of cash, trying to grow their business. And even as we've kind of kicked off this new AI wave in 23, we're seeing companies raise tons of money and burn tons of money. That hasn't been the path you've pursued. You've run a really lean operation. You invested quite a bit of your own money into the company, which is one of the things that we were super impressed with. Talk a little bit about how your kind of management ethos and how you've gotten everybody in the company to buy into this sort of I don't want to call it efficient growth, because it's just, for you, it's just growth, but it is way more efficient than a lot of enterprise software companies have been built in the last few years. And just what's the mantra? How does that cascade throughout the organization? And how do you hold that as you grow and build the company from here?
I think it helps that my first startup was 100% bootstrapped end to end. So when you have learned the skill of, yes, you have full control, but it's also your money coming from your bank account. I think you just develop a certain muscle around, if we need that, we want to grow, we're going to spend the money, and that makes absolute sense. But you're not going to be frivolous, and you're just going to think twice before you go and waste a bunch of money. And so it's sort of that balance of putting risk on, because you certainly don't want to not put risk on, but also just being capitally efficient. I think the lessons I then learned, working for a large scale organization that was quite mature, like Deloitte, was that you have to profitably grow and really think about your bottom and top line and everything all at once. Obviously, it's a bit of a different context in a startup. You're more top line focused for the first few years naturally, but we still don't want to be in this zone where we've seen. Someone told me the other day that like 2,000 fintechs will fail this year, and so
Might be low.
I was like, oh gosh, and so we're just very clear. We want to exist. We run a whole bunch of sensitivity analyses. For any CEOs out there, you don't necessarily have to be the one to do that or even know how to do that. I suppose you'll see the mantra: surround yourself with the right people who can get you the right analysis at any time, and also build it into your culture. For example, if I want to travel somewhere, I'm very careful about ensuring I have enough meetings to make it worthwhile. I hold myself to a standard, and quite a public standard actually, of ensuring that we are very thoughtful about the way we spend. And I think naturally there's a tone from the top that trickles down. People aren't going to go and book an amazing hotel when they know that I stay at a $150 hotel in New York whenever I'm there, and that it's quite comfortable. And there are times when I may make a different choice for a number of reasons. But I also want to just make sure that I'm holding myself to that standard. And I think naturally people know that, like, I am very invested in this company. I put a lot of money in it, as you said, not something that is always known, but I really do treat it as if it's still 100% my own money. So hopefully you're okay with that, because I just want to make sure that we're not going out over our skis there, because our number one goal is to make sure that we have enough moves to hit on the ones that are going to unlock the ability to go farther.
I think it's important too for folks to note that you guys are growing fast. You're building a company that's growing into the tens of millions in revenue, and so it's doable. But I love that mentality of it's, and it feels like the executive team thinks about it as if it's their money as well, which is really a powerful way to think about building a company. It's pretty cool.
Yes, I think in Canada we've struggled with people really understanding the value of equity. I think we've talked about this before, but I think what we really do is have cultivated this notion of ownership and acting like an owner. So I think we're closing that gap and really ensuring that everyone is very thoughtful, but also ensuring that we're doing what we need to do to have enough optionality as well, both in terms of being productive in terms of our spending, but also in terms of not taking steps that we need to take, like, not like always choosing the right person. If that person requires a little bit more, that's fine. Just really being careful. Plus, I would always rather, and you guys have been to our office and it's not special at all, but I would always rather.
It's a nice office. It's not over the top.
Fair enough. It's not over the top. We'll go with that. But it's like, I would always rather spend on a person or on an experience with our people than I would spend on a fancier office or a nice hotel.
Absolutely. I guess the last question on my end, Shelby, is we are obviously really excited to be partnering with you and again, Arteria, on your Series B. And as you think about the future for the company, would love to hear just what are you most excited about, or kind of where are you spending the most of your time thinking about where Arteria can have the most impact?
Yeah, I think we have such a clear North Star at this point of where we want the product to be. We believe that there should be a verticalized but single documentation infrastructure for these financial services institutions. And so just want to make sure that in addition to having the vision, that we back it up with a world-leading product as well. And so really ensuring that things that people don't even see yet that we're working on, things that banks don't necessarily have the model risk or infrastructure for today, that we're not just thinking about who they need today, but we're also thinking about who they need tomorrow and the next day, and are ensuring that we are thinking, we're thinking about always the next 5 steps. Now, we're very milestone driven, so we're always very focused on the next milestone, but within that context of being very clear about where we want to go. And so I would say big plans. We want to make sure that we keep winning on our go-to-market, and we are, and hopefully we'll keep doing so. I think the fact that we're really so specialized helps us win, and that we're really willing to be a very, very go the distance partner. I think that helps us win a ton. And so we want to make sure we're doing that, coupled with this idea that our product will never stay static. It will continue to become better and better and better in time, as we're sort of focused on right now.
One thing we should add, we spent some time talking about capital efficiency and running a well-run organization financially, but you guys are investing a ton in the product. The technology is amazing. The product vision is amazing. As you know, Raresh on our team spent a ton of time with your team, and one of the things we always have to think about as investors is, where could this company be in 5 years or 7 years or 10 years? We're going to be partners with you for a very long time. And so it's not just about what are you doing today, it's about what could you do 5 years, 7 years, 10 years down the road. And we've been super impressed with the roadmap, the thought process. I'm a big believer, as you know, that being vertically focused gives you an advantage because you understand your customer and where they want to go. And we're so early in this whole, it's not a new technology. AI has been around for decades, right? AI is what drives, Google search. But in terms of enterprise adoption, in particular, some of the functional use cases that we think are going to just explode in the next 5 to 10 years and drive huge financial gains for these organizations. I think you guys are right at the center of that. And it's pretty cool to think about. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. I also think the thing we know is that the banks of tomorrow will win with AI. And so we already know that the winners will use AI significantly.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, I think it's just a matter for our customers working back from that premise and then trying to figure out the journey to get to that future state, because it's not like the winners aren't going to use AI. They're not going to be tech deniers. We're not going to be, and so we all kind of have to think, how do we take it from here to there? At Arteria, we pride ourselves on really being product focused. 2/3 of the organization is technical. We are, we continue to try and achieve this balance of really focusing on better and better and better and world-class technology and going from there. And so we always just really want to be focused on, if we can get there, the product should, once people understand the vision, the product should just be, people should want more and more and more of it.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully that will bear fruit in time. But we also have this view, Jeff, that we think our story very much has even yet to reveal itself in time, and that the implications, certainly within the vertical, but in many verticals as well, will continue to sort of show themselves over time, and that the world is ripe for this. I think people, Chelcie, to your point, have been focused a lot on the models themselves, but the truth is it's what you build on top of those sort of core foundation models as well that matters so much to it completing the last mile for the customer within their sort of problem set.
Well, as you know, we agree. And we are.
I'm glad you agree, Jeff.
our whole partnership is so thrilled to be working with you, and it's been fun. Chelcie and I and Jen and Raresh and others have really enjoyed just getting to know you and the team over the last few months, building the relationship. The vision you just described, we're so excited about, and obviously I'm excited now for everybody else to hear it. They're going to watch this video and get to hear it. But I also, one of the things we're also big on is our founders and CEOs that have more experience helping others who were earlier in their journey. And you shared so much today. I think that's so powerful. And I look forward to having you as we're obviously going to focus on helping you build, but you also strike me as somebody who will be a great mentor and advisor to other folks in our portfolio and in our ecosystem, which is just so important, as you know. So we're thrilled to be part of the journey.
I'm so grateful to also be mentored. You guys have already set me up with amazing resources for me and for Arteria, which is actually really exciting as well. I love mentoring. in particular, my BMI bonnet is young female entrepreneurs are my peeps. And so really, really love that, but also really love learning as well. And can't wait to, mean, can't wait to have access to all that as well.
Awesome. We're in. We're excited.
Yay. Thank you.
Very
Thanks,
excited.
Shelby.
Thanks, Shelby.